Welcome back to the Prosperous Life Podcast, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up. Today, it is my goal, as well as my guest goal, to help you become aligned with yourself. We are blessed to have a guest today who is a musician and who's a former high school teacher. Alex Robinson, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Of course. So today we're talking about alignment with self and alignment within your emotions. And there's not a better person that I think is qualified to talk about this than you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I'm looking forward to helping the listeners and even helping myself. I'm sure I'll say something that gives me an aha.
We always do, right? The best advice comes from ourselves.
That's true. That's very true.
Sometimes I listen back on my podcast. I'm like, ooh, that was really good. I better go do that.
Yeah, like where'd that come from? Yeah, I've done that before.
Exactly. So as we talk about alignment with self and emotional intelligence, out of curiosity, when was the moment that you felt you needed to start to be more emotional aware, to be more in alignment with yourself in life?
Hmm. Okay, well, so when I was younger, I realized there was a moment where I had harmed my brother in some way. I think I broke his toy or something, and my dad made me apologize. He talked to me, made me apologize, and I felt really bad. So I went to apologize to him, and I started crying. And in the middle of the apology and all the tears, I'm thinking to myself, like, what are you doing? Like, this is not a good look. Like, you're sitting here crying to your little brother. Um, And I was like, okay, but what's going on? Like, why? Why? Like, I think after I really reflected on that, like, why did you cry when you had just dominated him? Like, what was that? And I thought about, like, I didn't know at the time I was sensitive, but it started to make sense. I don't even know if I knew the term sensitivity. I was in elementary school, but um, I started to be aware, like I would be emotional. And today I can tell you, like I can look at a sunset and I'll get emotional. So, or something happens, like I'll watch like America's Got Talent, and every time I watch it, there's something making me like get emotional, and it's crazy. Like, um, X-Men, I watched the X-Men movie and I cried 4 times at an action movie, and people are like, "What's going on with you?" But I was able to say, like, "Oh no, it's because I'm sensitive. Like I really get it." And so when I was younger, um, I started to be aware of the times when I would get emotional. Sometimes so I could like hide and not be emotional. Um, but then I embraced it as I grew older. I think after high school really is when I was like, okay, well, this is kind of who I am. And I started reading more and learning about sensitivity and emotional, like, IQ versus EQ. And I was like, oh, this is a good thing. So how do it's good that I'm in touch with my emotions. I learned like my emotions kind of would let me know what's going on in the world. And so that really helped me really get in touch and fine tune that. Like when XYZ happens, I feel this way. Um, when something good happens, I'm gonna have this response, and then that really kind of helped me dial in as to who I was as a person and how I operate in the world. It was really fun to really uncover that, and then it helped me also figure out like who I wanted to be around in terms of how did I feel when I was around a certain friend or whatnot. And it was a long process after I first started questioning it, and it's still something that I work on to this day. But I'm really happy that I've grown in terms of that sensitivity and being aware of my emotions.
So as you were talking, a thought came to mind, and just to kind of share my perspective here, what is man enough, right? Because talking to the men out there, men feel crying is weak. And in
Hmm.
my aspect and my emotional growth and your emotional growth is being emotional and sharing those emotions and crying to me is man enough because you're open. And I feel like every human is gifted the opportunity of emotional intelligence, being sensitive and showing their emotions, but the world has said that that makes you weak. Has
Hmm.
there been any time in your life that you felt embarrassed or shameful of your sensitivity and being willing to share your emotions?
You know what? I feel like I'm trying to think of if I was. I'm sure that there were. I won't say that there weren't. I'm sure that there were in the typical high school, teenage years. Um, but I think by then I wasn't. It wasn't that I was overly sensitive or overly emotional, but so it wasn't. It was never a problem for me, except for like I remember I was at the movies with my cousin. We're watching a movie, and she was on call, so she got a call. She's like, "I'll leave. I'll go take care of this. I'll come back and get you at the end of the movie." And the scene came on, and I'm just bawling, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm so glad that she is not here because I don't know how I would explain this. I really did." Um, and that kind of caused me to take a step back and go, what is going on with you? But I did want to share all of that because again, being manly, um, macho, whatever. And I played football in high school. And played sports. So oh gosh, I remember I cried one time after a game. Like I wanted to, I was gonna play, but my cousin and the other guy that had my position right ahead of me, like they had literally played in the NFL. Like there was three people on that team that played on the NFL. So obviously there's gonna be people who play like ahead of me. So this happened in front of the football team. After the game, I didn't get in at all. We lost. It was the first game we lost, and I really felt like I was so emotional before the game. And I would do like lead the team in prayer. Like I would be like that emotional compass for the team. And I never forget. I started crying. We were kneeling at the end, and all of that came up for me. And I was again like, "Oh my gosh! Like this is not happening. Please do not cry." And I could not help it. I let it out, and I just let all that out. But I felt more understanding from the team. They put a hand on my shoulder or they understood, and I think they understood because I didn't even get in. Um, and so that really caused me to be okay with showing emotion. And since then, like I'm thinking of a quote. All right, so Steve Harvey, to quote him, I can't quote him verbatim, but he did mention like you don't have to be hard all the time. Like you just like lay that down. Like if you think about it, just that's too heavy of a burden to be hard every day throughout the day. You know, and you see today memes of them like what be on TikTok. Be on Instagram, you might see a meme that like how guys are supposed to act, and even in the privacy of their own home, they're like, "Oh wait, let me not get caught doing this." um, or behaving in this manner or whatever. Like that's a serious pressure when you are in the privacy of your own home and those thoughts are going through your head. Because it essentially denies a human being the opportunity to express their human beingness. Because everybody's different. But if we prescribe like, oh, all men have to behave this way, I mean, there's obviously some things, some characteristics that are beneficial to being a man, and or that a man can be to be beneficial to humanity. But that's way too much pressure, and denying yourself your ability to dial in to your emotions is really detrimental not only to oneself but also to society, because you cut off what you can really provide other people. And so um, I've learned that, I started a leadership academy where I worked as a teacher, specifically to help the young men learn how to take their sensitivity and turn it into a superpower. So I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. So, of course, and I just feel that you've been blessed with this emotional intelligence and you've just grasped upon it and you've ran with it. And now you're teaching other people to do it as well, which is an amazing thing. Of course, we've had ups and downs. We're all human. Do you feel like there was any time in your life that I don't necessarily want to say it's a struggle or a pitfall, but would you say just because you're a very aware person? So I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you've really always known I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. Although, was there any time in your life that you feel you were in a pit, an emotional struggle, trying to deal with your emotions?
Like right now. uh, um, I think yeah, right now is a time for me. I'll talk about that in a second. I because right now is even though I am dealing with that right now, and the reason why I'm dealing with it is just because I'm transitioning careers. Going from a career in education to one in music to writing to there's so much, and so that I'm in that transition period, and that in this economy is enough to drive anybody crazy. So that's where I am. But you see me smiling, and it's a genuine smile because um, right now is nothing. Like what I'm dealing with right now, it's serious. Trust me. But from learning from the past, it's not a big of issue, and I think that really could help a lot of people. I I never obviously you have your sad moments, you have your happy moments. I said that I would cry, but sometimes when I would cry, it would just be out of an emotional purging, if I will. It would be maybe a bubbling up of something, or or even kind of coming into an alignment. Usually when well, I think it's Eckhart Tolle. No. Um, Crying does bring relief. And so it's more of like you come into an alignment of who you are as you cry. You have a good cry, you feel better, basically. So, um, but I don't like to cry like if there's a problem. I'll cry if something beautiful happens. If I just really feel in touch or in tune with the creator, I will be moved to tears. But in terms of problems, I don't cry over the problems. Um, and I never, other than just normal childhood, teenage emotions, nothing serious. Um, I think I'd like to share a time when I realized that I was depressed. I didn't know I was depressed. There was one time in my life that I really had to deal with emotional pitfalls that I had, and I was older by then. I was working in my career, definitely an adult, 20 something, um, and I didn't know what the problem was. All I know is that so I had an issue like the day before. The next day, I couldn't get out of bed. Like I couldn't go to the gym. I didn't want to eat. I didn't and I wasn't aware of it. I just knew like, no, I'll go to the gym later. I just don't feel like it. Um, and then there was that. And I would force myself to get out of bed, and it just was weird. It was like, why am I acting like this? And then I was driving to get away to get to my parents' house to hang out with them for the weekend. And on the way up from LA to the Bay Area, like the craziest thoughts, like, oh, you know what? I could just drive off this cliff. Not the cliff, like the side of the road. And literally, I would be like, no, this is not a good place to drive off the road because I would have to, like, it would have to be dramatic enough for me to actually end it. Like, what? like thinking back on that, that's insane that I had access to those thoughts. Um, but I didn't know that I was actually going through a depression until later. I actually started reading about what depression looked like in men because I wasn't crying. I wasn't again. I wasn't crying over the problem. And then I was like, oh, and that helped me figure out like, oh, you were depressed. It only lasted maybe the intense part of that depression, like where I had, and I you'll hear me say I had access to those suicidal thoughts, um, or rather, maybe they had access to me because I was at such a low point. And what helped was to be around family and realize, oh, I think everything's gonna be okay. And then by the time maybe by the end of the weekend when I was heading back down to LA, like I was like, oh, I didn't think about like driving off the road because those thoughts I didn't have access anymore. I started to feel better and better, which is something I read about. Like, the lower you feel, the more you're gonna have access to lower vibrational thoughts. But the better you are, I mean, suicide. No, that you will never catch me feeling that way unless I get into an episode like that. Um, but if I so now when I say today I'm having this issue, I don't feel like I don't feel down because I mean I have a track record now. I know things will work out. I kind of know how. And if I want to answer your question a little bit more specifically, like how I dealt with it, and if somebody is wondering, like, yes, my parents helped me in time. 2 or 3 days gave me a little bit more perspective. But if you've ever driven a car without like a power steering, like I used to have a 1967 Toyota Corona, little old thing, zero technology. So I'm like turning the wheel, trying to like turn corners. I would be exhausted after I drove that car through LA traffic. Um, that's what it was like to get control of my thoughts. Like I don't think I knew to get happy first, or maybe I didn't even know how to get happy, but I knew like, oh, I can't be thinking this way. And so whenever I think like, oh, well, I could drive off the road, or I could, the thoughts got a little bit better and easier to manage, but it would be like pulling myself back, turning that car. And I'd have to be aware, like, oh no, you can't think like that. You have to think differently. You have to think differently. And this would be like sometimes it'll be 30 seconds later after I fix it, and 30 seconds later, boom, another, and I was like, oh. And I'd catch myself in the thought, and I'd be like, oh no, this doesn't feel good. What can I think about? And then it became like an hour later when I'd have a thought, and I'm like, oh, and it was turmoil. That was turmoil for me. Like I never, I respect people as a person who never really been depressed. I'd be like, oh, you just be happy. But as a person who's gone through a short bout of depression, I understand how difficult it is to like really take control of your mind because it's a lot. So that's been the one time where I really fell into a pitfall. And I think after that, there have been other times as well, but it gets easier and easier because I made it through that. I made it through the next thing. Okay, I can handle it. I can handle it. So right now it's irking me at best, I should say, or at worst, I should say, but there's nothing I can't handle.
Of course. So through all of that, would you say family was your number one tool to get you out of that depression, or what tools did you use to build your life back to happiness and fulfillment?
Family was like the number one thing that turned it around. I really don't know how I would have handled it on my own. Um, Not to say that I wouldn't have. I just don't know how. All I know is family, and I would say friends or loved ones were a jump start, if you will.
Sure.
Family and maybe a couple days, And then I was like, okay. So my family's got my back. That was like number one. And then, like I said, I just had to not allow myself to think a certain way. And these are tactics like or strategies I would say that are very beneficial. But I nobody taught that to me. I learned now. Like you have to really manage. But I'm just so thankful that my family was able to get me to step one, so then I could like take a little bit of more control and get myself to step two, and then again time passing and perspective changing, go, oh, I think I'm going to be okay, that maybe gets me to step three. So there are a number of factors involved. um there are a number of factors involved that really helped me out.
Of course. So step one, if you're having an emotional pitfall, if you're struggling, get around friends, get around family that truly have your best interest. Not
Exactly.
saying don't go around the friends that, are subscribing to your bad habits, the drinking, the smoking, to
Oh
push
no,
those
no, no,
emotions
no.
down. Get around the friends, the family that have your best interest.
That's a really good point, because there will be friends. You got people in your life that will help you or think that they're helping you. Oh, let's go drink. Let's whatever. And they're trying to bless them. They're trying to help you, but really, you got to get yourself around the people who are going to uplift you. I do remember a friend hit me up he didn't know what was going on. He just hit me up out of the blue, um, joking like normal, like we normally joke, but because I was in such a bad place, I was like, I didn't even respond to his text because I just couldn't bring myself. Like I don't have time for the BS, and that's another aha moment for me. I was like, but normally something must be wrong with me. Normally I would laugh and send him a text back, but that time it was like I don't have time for it. So I think also you do have to follow your emotions. Like you want to. I think you have to take care of yourself under all circumstances. You might say like, "Well, this man wants to get me drunk. That might help," but is that really the best thing for you? Like, under normal circumstances, maybe you can handle it. Right now, it's just going to throw you off. So, you do have to you do have to really be aware and follow your emotions, follow how you're feeling.
Of course. So you started your academy to help young high school students, is that fair to say?
Hmm.
To
Specifically, the guys.
become more aligned with self. Tell me about, and I'm sure there's a lot of processes that you take, but tell me a little bit about the processes you took to help them become more aligned with self, to have emotional intelligence.
Um. So I I was at a school, and I really give props to the principal. Like I said, I really there were there were about two groups that dealt specifically with the young ladies on campus. Um, and there was one that dealt with the young men, but they were upperclassmen. And I've always taught freshmen. And the freshmen get to high school, and it's a whole nother world for them. And they're teachers use the term squirrely for freshmen. Um,
Okay.
I use I use the term annoying and crazy, but it's all love. And so really going back to like, like I said, like people like I learned um to operate fully as myself, sensitivity or not. And then there were a lot of students, not just the boys, but the girls as well, like who really we built a great rapport. Um, so I went to one of the female teachers, and I asked, like, I'm thinking about doing this for the guys. Like the basketball team will hang out in the room at lunch or after school. What do you think? And she was like, you got to do it. So I did it. Um, and I think the first criteria was, I think unbeknown kind of, I just knew like who would be a good fit. Like I had an idea for what program I wanted to run. Um, the the kind of mission of the leadership academy I started was to develop the students um, academically, socially, and spiritually. And so through travel, through lecture, through like group work. And so I began to notice like certain of the young men who I don't think I knew it at the time, but those who were more sensitive, those who were more aware of either who they were or, their surroundings, and I would invite them in. And then so you have like a class full of like these sensitive young men who were then, because of that sensitivity, open to okay some of the things that I wanted to try with them, group work. And I'll share a quick story, but I'd have like requests, and you can only fit so many kids in a room. And I think I had like 40 some. It was an advisory period, so it wasn't. It was like a homeroom type of thing. Um, I think we got up to 40, which was crazy. Like there were no seats whatsoever. We made it work, and people wanting to be in the class, but there was a specific group that I knew that I wanted to impact. And I've had students say, like, we would look at you and we'd be like, what are you having us do? But because we trusted you, and because everything that we did actually made us feel better and made us like bond, we followed you and we loved you for it. Um, I'll never forget. Like, so here's what I would do with them. I really started to get in touch with like my spiritual side, helping them. Um, Meditation. I wasn't really aware of meditation, but I knew kind of like how to quiet my mind. So I started that with them, and how to quiet your mind and get your mind out of the way, or all the hustle and bustle and the resistance, if you will, and then to just receive from source energy. And I would be big on you are not your thoughts. That was my biggest thing. You are not your thoughts, and watch your ego. And like the kids would go around and be like, check your ego. Um, but in order to do that, I literally went to the 99-cent store and I would buy coloring books. And if it was Thanksgiving, I would buy Thanksgiving books. And if it was like Halloween, there would be like Snoopy and Halloween. And I would like make copies. This is high school, mind you. And I had all grades, 9 through 12, all boys, pretty much athletes. Um, it was really interesting. All variety of diverse races. And so I'll never forget the football coach was also the security guard. And he walks in with the slip to call a kid. And what I do, I'm playing this very soft music. The lights are out. There's a little like lamp on, and the kids are coloring. They're just coloring in high school. Everybody like at that school, it was a big thing about like test results and all that. So they're like, I had a special permission to do what I wanted with them because it was a program. But he walked in, the coach walked in, he's like, do I have, and like, he's looking for somebody, and he stops and he looks around the room, like, and I just walk over. None of the kids look up at him. Like, they're so focused. Because at that time, I taught them how, like, if you have a thought that doesn't feel right, just make a mark, like, mark, and go right back to coloring. And the music would soothe them. And we do that for maybe 10 minutes, just a quick part of the class. But he walked in. I could imagine what he said when he went back to the office. Like, what is going? But I know that shocked him because, like, as a football coach, and you see the athletes in here, and like, what they're these high school kids are literally coloring, but they would love it, and that started them to really calm themselves down. Especially, this was an area where these kids would get shot at on the way home. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how ninth graders would be shot at, but they would be shot at. So it would help them really calm themselves down and get in touch with who they were. And then once we got there, then it was all about, okay, how do we start doing team building so that you can start giving of who you really are versus who you thought you should be. And that was a really fun process for me.
That's powerful. So a couple things that I pulled out from that as far as building yourself up, your emotional intelligence, getting in alignment with self is one, of course, good people, as we talked about. Two, find something fun, whether it's coloring, whether it's listening to music, a type of meditation, where you can align your emotions and calm your nerves so that you
Mm-hmm.
can start to think clearly. It's not to say that, oh, I have that thought, I'm a bad person. Oh, I have this thought, I'm not enough. It's that you're marking it, you're checking it off, and you're aware that you had that thought, and you're just letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
And the analogy that comes to mind when you said that was the snow globe analogy. Have you heard of that?
I sounds familiar. Can you
So if you
refresh my
envision
memory?
yourself in a snow globe, if you
Mm-hmm.
keep running around trying to grab every single thought, the snowflake is just going to keep going and going and going, and your mind's
Mm-hmm.
never going to be clear.
Ah.
But if you just calm down, sit and settle, at some point, all the snowflakes are going to come down to the ground. It's not to say that that negative thought is actually real. It's there, it's a snowflake. That doesn't mean you need to grab on it and feel the emotion of that thought.
Mm-hmm.
You can just let it be. Let it
Yeah,
run.
exactly.
So that's
Yeah,
powerful. So
yeah.
so as you were in this school, there was of course violence and things that played out, unfortunately. And like you said, no ninth grader, 10th grader, 12th grader, for anybody for that matter, needs to experience that. And it's just part of the world, unfortunately. And we just need to learn how
Mm-hmm.
to handle that. What were the emotional states of those kids that you were teaching?
You know, just like you talk about, we talked about men having to be hard, or and at their very core, they're just as sensitive because they are human. Same thing with
Fair.
teenagers. Like you have teenagers and students, and it doesn't matter like what the level of affluence is in the neighborhood. Like the teenager, you may be told that they're unruly, and they might be, but at the core of a teenager and a student, they all want to do well. They all want to learn. They all want to love you. It's really interesting when you're in a school or around young, and people who are around young people know. Like if you look at your own kids, you might say like, "Oh, you know what? My kids are cool. What's going on?" Everybody's kids are cool. It's just everything that's going on around them that might cause a little bit of turmoil. So to go back to what you said, like teaching young people how to calm that down, let all the snow fall, and then if you happen to grab a thought, how does it make you feel? That's really all you need to know. Like how does it make you feel? Because if it makes you feel good, then you start to know, and if it makes you feel bad, you also start to know. And you get to know who you are. But I'm gonna ask you to re-ask the question because I think I lost it somewhere.
Can I share one
If
thing
I
real
answer,
quick?
sure.
The one thing that came to mind was food. When you start to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of the foods that you eat, you're like, ooh, that made me feel really good.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
I ate
yeah,
way too much sugar. I probably should never eat that again. And when you
yeah.
start to eat mindful, you naturally get healthier. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel that's something that a lot of young people need to recognize and understand is that a healthy spirit, mind, and body is a process. Living a
Mm.
prosperous life is a process. It's not yes, we want the nice body. Yes, we want the solid spirit and mind. That's the end result. Where we really
Mm-hmm.
get our growth and where we get our dopamine and the love is the journey. And so if you're in a place of depression, anxiety, sadness, or in a place that you're not happy with your body, fine. That's totally fine. You just need to be aware of it and start to recognize when I have these thoughts, I feel sad.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop holding on to those thoughts so much. And that sounds overly simple, but it's the truth. Because then you're going to recognize when I have these thoughts, I feel happy. When I have these thoughts, I
Yeah.
feel fulfilled. And those are the thoughts that you can begin to grasp on. And then you'll begin
Mm-hmm.
to have them more and more. And at some point, you'll be like, wow, I did this. I made this happen.
Exactly. And I think it's really unique for each person. And I mean, we can talk about teenagers, but really anybody. If anybody goes through that process and they really, they start to fine tune who they are, everybody wants better for themselves. Everybody wants to be better tomorrow than they were yesterday. If you see something happen that doesn't sit well with you, you want that situation to go better. If somebody yells at me an obscenity or whatever, and I want them to treat me better, or I want to treat somebody better, and so um, and those are things I don't really think about, but they come to mind as I live and as I go through my day. And so you're absolutely right. Just like I feel like that productivity, that leveling up in a positive way happens. And we really have to follow who we are. And there's arguments and I've had arguments with people like, oh, society is getting worse. And I always say, no, it's getting better. I mean, at least I like to think that. I think people, as they live, they want things to be better. And so, in that sense, if we just go, two things: the new generations that come in are the answers to our prayers, if you will, in that they are the answer to that call to be better. If we are too caught up in looking at the problem, we put out to the universe, this is how we want the world to be, and the universe brings a new generation exactly how we want to be, and we can have that ourselves. If we just, okay, well, I should be I guess the Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see. Like, don't wait till the next generation comes. You can be that change right now. But if not, the next generation will come and maybe you'll learn from them.
Of course. As you say that, I wish I could say the exact book title, but there's a book out there that has looked back upon tons of generations. And it's the study that every generation that has ever lived has felt like it's been the worst generation.
Wow.
Exactly.
Is there like the one that comes out feels like it's the worst?
Like how we were just talking, like society's only getting worse. Like it's horrible right now. Every generation has had those same thoughts.
No, let me ask you this. Is it that the new generation comes and they go, oh, we're the worst. We're getting worse. We're getting worse. Or is it the generation before that looks at the generation and goes, they're getting worse? Or is it like a mixture of both?
It's certainly a mixture of both. Because at this time in our life, and there's a lot of political viewpoints, to say the least, where people are like, oh,
Yes.
this is bad, this is good. The thing is, there's always two sides to a story.
Mm-hmm.
So my bad could be your good.
Exactly.
Your good, my bad. And the reason people feel that things are so bad is because they look at the bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why not start to just find the good? The thing
Yeah.
is, any bad situation actually offers good.
Exactly.
If we look at how the world has been through COVID and all this cases, don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of things that we're not serving as far as the world goes, like distancing, being in your home, not getting out and being social. We can look at that and see that increased suicide rates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although, what was all the good that came out of it? As far as I'm concerned, there was a lot of blessings that came from it.
Yeah.
I now was inspired to do a lot of certain things with coaching. I wrote a book. That's just my personal life. But as far as I'm concerned, COVID was a blessing in my life. And I understand not everybody can say the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm open to hearing the reasons COVID was bad, although there was still a lot of good.
But okay, so if COVID was bad, I strongly believe in you creating your own you create your reality. We hear that a
Yeah.
lot. And I feel like props to you because you are a living example of it. Everybody is a living example of, if you look at their reality, they created it. That's not to be dismissive or you know. But I mean, give yourself props, like good or bad, you create it, and that makes you powerful. So yeah, I see what you have done. It's really inspirational. Um, but going back to the food analogy, like if you eat something that's good, like you go back for that. Let's say you're at a buffet or something, at a restaurant, you want to order. Let's say you're at a buffet and you're going through, and you go, oh look, there's broccoli. I don't want broccoli. Look at the broccoli. Like, well, get the spaghetti. Like, stop looking at the broccoli because that's causing you
Yeah.
problem. Look for what you want and get what you want. There's a whole big world out here, and the world is super chaotic, and it's supposed to be because we have so much diversity. Like you and I are different, but we're definitely mutual. Thank goodness. And there are other people who we're just totally will be totally different. And if I let them be them and they let me be me, then it's totally okay. That's how you make the world less chaotic. I think the world is it seems chaotic because there's so many people doing what they do, and there's too many people saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that." Or essentially, I don't like broccoli. I don't like broccoli. Well, just don't worry about the broccoli. Worry about the spaghetti, and you'll have a good time. You'll create a great experience. And I think that's the same thing as like, something's going on. Yeah, we want things nicely, but if we take care of what we feel is nice and we want that for ourselves, then that's we will have and we'll live and let live, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And if somebody else decides to get broccoli, let them. And then
Let them eat broccoli.
you can have a conversation of why you don't like broccoli. They can share why
Yeah.
they do like broccoli, and you guys can
And
have a
then
good
it's okay.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's okay. It's really okay.
And
I will never
it's
eat broccoli. Well, I'll eat it, but I will never do certain things. But I learned like, but you're a human being. Like you have a perspective. Like you're important.
and let others have that perspective and love each other for those differences.
Exactly. You know
And
what? I think that. Mhm.
I was just going to share, and this would change if every single person truly took this by hand and implemented it in their life. Just this one conversation of accepting your differences and accepting other people's differences. This would completely transform a lot of emotional intelligence and people being in alignment with themselves. Because
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know without a doubt, a lot of people grow up and they feel like they have to be like their friends, their parents, their teachers, and
Oh yeah,
society
yeah,
in general.
yeah.
It's okay to have differences, recognize that, and just love you for you, but just make sure that who you are and the person you love all the differences of other people as well. You don't have to agree with
Mhm.
them, but
Mhm.
at least have respect to have a conversation and not be a bully.
Yeah. And you know what helps with that is to take a step back because in the specifics we're different and we are meant to be different in the specifics. Let me give you an example going back to the food, the broccoli thing. Like specifically, you like broccoli, I don't like broccoli. But we both like to eat. So if we take a step back and we go, you like to eat and I like to eat, that's something we have in common. Now I do take issue with what you eat, but that's too much. I see that you like to eat broccoli, that's fine. But I love the fact that we both like to eat.
Of
And and
course.
and, and there's so many issues going on in the world. And maybe, I mean, maybe you blame social media, maybe you don't, because people have been around forever. And I think we're just aware of so many people's different lifestyles. And it's definitely a chore to like really be accepting. But if you get to the point where you're like, oh, this person does that, but overall, that person really wants a good life for their family. They want a good life for their friends. They want their kids to be, there's a lot going on in school today with kids and parents, right? And parents are at each other, whatever. But we all want our kids to be safe. So let's start there. Before we get into the specifics, let's start there and then see how far we can go. But if we can't get any farther than that, just know we still are of the same heart because we still want the best for our kids or the best for ourselves.
Absolutely. And the one thing to keep in mind is every millionaire will let you know that they're self-made, but every person that struggles will not.
Hmm.
And a part of alignment with self and a part of emotional intelligence is taking full responsibility for your life. Whether you're a millionaire listening to this, a billionaire, or whether you have negative $10 or negative a million, we're all self-made. And the moment that
Yeah.
you take responsibility of, I am poor, I am unhappy, I am depressed, and you take full responsibility as to why, you give yourself permission to someday be proud and say, I'm a self-made happy person. I'm a self-made Braiden Belnap, and I'm happy me. I'm a self-made millionaire. Whatever it is you're looking to accomplish, you are self-made. And yes, you may have had some hardships in your life. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe your parents were hard on you. Whatever the case was, let those not good things, which really in turn, if you make them good things, they will be. It's all perspective.
Hmm.
That will fuel your fire so you can be the person that you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really well said. I had a thought and it just left. It was really good though, what you were saying.
That's just an example that every thought we have, we don't need to craft. Just kidding.
There you go. Right? Yeah.
Anyways,
So yeah, that exactly. Like you're that's really important to understand to be self-made. Everybody I think what I'm learning personally when I think about aligning with myself is to accept where I am. Like even in this transitional period, if I were, I guarantee you, if I keep telling myself, you should have this amount of money, you should have this in savings, you should have this invested, et cetera, and I'm not there, it's me not being satisfied with this situation and honoring the fact that it's the jumping off point for where I am going. But if I don't ever honor this is where I am, and I can talk this up and be favorable, like a favorable expectation. Like I see what right now has to offer. Like all I have is right now, and I see what that has to offer. So I can use right now to level up versus spending all my right now mad because I'm not where I need to be. And something you said about happiness, I really like. Like there's a quote: "Everybody has the equal opportunity to be the happiest person in the world." That to me resonates. Like I don't need the money or whatever yet, but I do have an equal opportunity. And maybe I'll never have Bezos' money or Elon Musk's money or whatever, but I do have the same opportunity to be happier than them. Like everybody on the planet has an equal opportunity to be the happiest person in the world. It just takes a moment of reflecting, being appreciative. I get to be the happiest person in the world at some point, and then somebody else will take over. But I don't need to be the happiest person in the world. I just need to be happy about where I am. And that happiness will then translate into more money, better opportunities, better thoughts that come, better ideas.
of course. And I love happiness and I love all
Mm-hmm.
emotions. And the one thing is, and I think happiness is a reflection of fulfillment. Happiness is an emotion that, of course, as you've said, it will come and go. Are you fulfilled
Mm-hmm.
with life? Chase fulfillment, and you'll find yourself having a lot more happy moments than sad. Will you still feel
Mm-hmm.
sad being a fulfilled life? Yes.
And that's okay.
Chase fulfilled. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, if we weren't
Yeah.
sad, then well, we're not human at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only way to never be sad, as far as I'm concerned, is to not have anybody around you, because then you have nobody else that can disappoint you or standards to
Mm-hmm.
be set. But that's sad in itself. That's a lonely road.
Yeah. Right.
We need to have people around us and that love us dearly and have our best interest, and we have theirs. And it's a beautiful thing to cry with somebody that you love as well.
Yeah. Exactly. This human experience is take it for everything. The happiness, the sadness is it's a beautiful thing. all together.
Embrace the human experience. Absolutely. So, and I think really the one thing that I got from this podcast, and I would love to hear your thoughts, is embrace the now. We all are self-made, and wherever you're at, whether that's sad, depressed, frustrated, anxious, happy, the happiest person, fulfilled, recognize that wherever you're at and whatever you're experiencing right now, you can choose to see what you want, and you can go along the journey to getting it.
Mm-hmm. Right now, really, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that to me is being in alignment with self, is the journey and accepting the journey. Not finding the reasons why you can't be in alignment with self and why you can't master your emotions. Just see where you're at now, see where you want to go, and walk along the journey. And naturally, you will find along the journey that you find yourself.
It's always beautiful talking with you because I love how you get it and you make sense of it. That definitely resonates with me. Right now, I've learned more and more, and I think even just by you saying what you just said now really brings me to a deeper understanding. Really, right now is all we have. Like, for the people who are listening and watching the podcast, like, how do you feel right now? Like, you don't have tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, it'll be right now. So wherever you are, you have right now. And I think it's really important to make the most of right now. And we touched on it, like, you might be sad right now, but fix it when you get a chance, because right now is so powerful. It draws more to you. Right now is your moment of power. So you want to be at least satisfied. You want to be happy because you draw more happiness to you. But whatever you do, you're doing it right now. And that's where your power is.
Absolutely. So, coming to an end, I've absolutely loved talking to you, Alex. How can me and the audience serve you?
Well, I think I'll try this. Like, whenever you think of me, smile, send me good energy. I think that would serve me, like me specifically, just a good thought. Wish me well, and in turn, I'll take that and use that to bless as many people as I can.
I absolutely love that. You're such a powerful person, Alex, and I love that you recognize that you've been gifted a gift in this world of the sensitivity and I shouldn't say sensitivity. Being sensitive is such a beautiful thing. I like the word empath because I consider myself an empath as well. I can tell when people are sad without them telling me, even though they feel light and happy. And that is such a beautiful gift. And I love that you recognize that, because so many people have that gift and shove it down. And not only have you taken that gift into your life, you've shown other people their gifts. And that's a powerful, powerful thing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to actually do that, to help anybody. It's something I don't really think about. I do. But I'm glad that I know what I know. And I'm willing to help anybody that I can help. I'm very humbled by it.
Absolutely. So the final question is, what is your definition of a prosperous life?
That's a good question. A prosperous life. I feel like the definition of a prosperous life, it's when you do what you came here to do. Like, everybody came here to be themselves. I think when you are yourself, you are fulfilling the fullness of who you are and all that you intended and that which we call God intended for us to be. To be unapologetic in who you are will then set in motion results not only for you but for others. And when you do that just by being yourself, and living up to the promise of who you are, you have um, no other choice than to be a prosperous person and live a prosperous life.
Absolutely. It's very well said. Very beautiful as well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much again, Alex. I really appreciate the opportunity to have you on. Do you have any last words for the audience today?
Well, I just appreciate your time. I appreciate being able to speak to people with whom I may not have had an opportunity or will never meet, but just know that I love you and I appreciate you as a people, and I appreciate the fact that you are here supporting Braiden, um, and willing to grow all together. I think that's a beautiful thing that we all came together for that reason.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alex. And thank you so much, everybody, for showing up today. Again, be you, enjoy the journey. And if you found value in today, go ahead and subscribe and leave a review. Have a good day, everybody.